Hello, and welcome to Chapter 6, Building Internally Consistent Compensation Systems. As an organization, we want to make sure that we have pay that is applicable to the job level, knowledge, skills, and abilities that we're requiring of our employees so that we can pay them appropriately within the industry wages. So let's take a look first at what is internally consistent. The textbook says internal consistency compares the value of each job within the same company against the rest of the jobs found within that company. It's based on a fundamental principle that jobs require greater qualifications, more responsibility, and more complex job duties that should offer more pay than those jobs that require less. We've talked about this in other chapters that if we are hiring people in multiple layers within the organization, we should anticipate, and the market, the applicant should anticipate, that those coming into the organization at a lower pay scale would be required to enter with less knowledge base, less experience, being newer in the field. And when we are hiring those positions that have higher level executive duties, then we are paying them in order to match their skills, abilities, education that they might bring to the organization. So this chapter really outlines how do we consistently set a basis so that our pay is appropriate for the knowledge, the experience, the qualifications that we are requiring of our employees, and is that applicable, comparable to the different types of positions in the industry and within our area. We want to make sure that we are not grossly overpaying someone, but on the same token, we will have a hard time retaining employees if we can't pay them an appropriate wage scale. So we first have to take a look at job analysis. It's one thing to say, all right, well, let's make sure that our pay is relative to the job that we are promoting or the job that we are paying someone for, but how do we go about doing that? Job analysis is the systematic approach for gathering documentation and analyzing the information to make sure that it is relevant to the position. What are some ways that we can do that? Well, we can specifically look at the job content. If we are looking to hire an executive secretary, what are some of the core responsibilities that we would expect that person in that position to be able not only to have met before being brought on with the organization? What are some skills that we would hope that they would master while they're with us? And then can we make that pay scale appropriate? And then would we look at other positions in the area, like organizations, and make sure that we have appropriate wage scales? You know right away if you're marketing a position and you're not getting many applicants, or you have 200 people applying for a position, that there might be an outlier in our statistical data. So we want to make sure that we're taking a look at the skill, effort, responsibility, and working conditions when we're looking at a job. You might have a position that pays a little bit more. Shift differentials are a great example. I work in healthcare, so we have people that work knock shifts that are working while the rest of us are sleeping, and they receive a shift differential, and that's additional monies, additional benefits or compensation that they receive for working a less desired shift. Or when people work in what we consider to be hazardous working conditions, they might receive a shift differential as well. Looking at our sources of data, we might want to look around, ask word by mouth, what are some of the common rates these days, maybe look around at sister organizations that are hiring. We want to make sure that we are looking at concrete results. Job incumbent, supervisors, job analysis, these are excellent methods for finding out what is appropriate pay for this position that we're looking for. The textbook notes that writing job descriptions is a perfect time to match that with pay. Or if we're already farther along into the process and we have people working in a certain field, maybe we want to renegotiate their wages or take a look at their job duties to make sure that they're relevant to their pay level. We have some regulations that have been put in place by the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and they make sure that we all have the same base language for an employee's knowledge, skill, and ability. Skill refers to observable competence to performance to learn at a certain aspect. So a skill would be a skill set For an executive secretary, we require that you can type 75 words a minute. Do you have the skill set? Yes or no? And we would tie that exactly with wages. Maybe we would have an executive secretary that has a 3-tiered wage scale. You come in, you need 50 words a minute, 70, 75 words a minute. As we're mastering these different skill levels, then our pay would be appropriate with that. Looking through the chapter, it discusses the ONET categories. Not a lot of people are familiar with this type of job analysis system, but it's a great way to figure out if we are paying people appropriately. Looks at the experience requirements, occupational requirements, occupational specific requirements, because they might be mandated by either the state or federal organizations, worker requirements, and worker characteristics, as well as the labor market characteristics. It's a chart, it's a 6-pronged chart that we can sit down and look at with any job relevant to our organization and find out if we are paying someone appropriately. The chapter wraps up discussing with some examples of using the ONET system. It also gives a great outline of the experience requirements, occupation requirements, occupation-specific workforce characteristics, all those elements that we previously discussed. So make sure you read through the chapter, complete your burning question for the week. Let me know how things are going. Talk with one another. I encourage you. We are about midway through the course, so it's important that we're keeping up with our weekly pace. Great job.